Reading is an adventure. Where will it take you? If you're reading a book, then you know that it will take you to all kinds of different settings wherever the story is set. So if you're the cat in the hat, your story might be set in that house where you make such a mess, you naughty cat. Better clean it up. Or maybe you're Clifford the Big Red Dog, and your setting for your story is going to be, it's going to be anywhere that Emily Elizabeth is. Or maybe your storybook character is Johnny Appleseed, and your setting is all of outdoors, wherever you travel with that saucepan on your head like a hat, and you're planting apple seeds. So your setting can be so many different places. And you may remember that my setting used to be the Ellisville Branch Library. I was your librarian there. And I lived in Indiana my whole life. That was my setting for my story. But I've changed my setting to the state of Maine. I moved. It's along the Atlantic coastline, and it's up, way up in the northeast of our United States. I hope you'll look at it on a map so you could see where I live in Maine. And in this new setting, I've had all kinds of adventures already. So I made up a little story for you, and I'm using a folk tale called Fortunately, Unfortunately. You'll see how it goes, and you'll see that if you want to write a story about fortunately, unfortunately, you could write one too anytime. But this is my story for you today. Once upon a time, fortunately, I lived in Indiana my whole life. I loved it. But unfortunately, it was only one state, and you know there's 50 of them. So fortunately, I got a chance to discover another state and moved to the state of Maine. Now, unfortunately, I had to leave behind in Indiana all the animals and birds and flowers and places and people that I know and love. But fortunately, I can visit them anytime I want, and I will. I'll be back to visit. Unfortunately, in Indiana, we did not have some animals that are here in Maine. But fortunately, they are here, like black bear and porcupines and moose. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a whole moose, but fortunately, I did see the back end of one. I was walking down a trail and I heard it crashing in the brush, and I looked over to see the back end, the bottom of a moose as it ran away. Do you know that the hide on that moose has little short black hairs, just like a cow in Indiana? And fortunately, the moose was running away from me because I scared it. But sometimes if you scare a moose or they're worried about protecting their babies, they can be pretty fierce, so you don't want to get on the wrong side of a moose. Unfortunately, the other day I was hiking with my dogs in the trails here in Maine. There's lots of pine trees and everything, and we were coming around a bend and there was a porcupine in the middle of the path. Now, porcupines have those sharp quills, and unfortunately, my little dog lunged at the porcupine. And the porcupine turned around with its head to think, "What are you? Are you danger?" But fortunately, I had my dogs on their leashes, and I was able to keep them with me, and we watched the porcupine turn away from us and waddle down the trail. Porcupines waddle, and they have a funny looking little tail, even though it is covered with those scary quills. Unfortunately, one day I was walking down a trail and I saw a huge bird fly over my head with a fish in its talons. That poor fish. But fortunately, that fish was going to be that bird's dinner. It was an osprey. We have them in Indiana too. They're called the fishing hawk. And he had a wriggling wet fish he just clutched out of the ocean. And unfortunately, the fish got out of his talons and fell. I thought it was going to fall right on me, but fortunately, it landed just a couple feet away from me. And unfortunately, the osprey lost his meal. And unfortunately, the fish was dead. But fortunately, as soon as I and my little doggies walked away, that osprey could come back and finish his dinner of fish. Now, unfortunately, here in the state of Maine, it gets a little cold. But fortunately, I love winter. And in this state of Maine, I have found that there's different kinds of foods to eat than there were in Indiana. Fortunately, we still have all the yummy things of Indiana, but also we have fishermen. The fishermen are out on the ocean every day where the wind blows so hard and makes a tough job. But fortunately, the fishermen and the fisherwomen are very strong and they're able to pull out of the ocean lobsters and scallops and oysters and haddock and all kinds of wonderful things to eat. Unfortunately, most of the beaches that you'll walk here in Maine are rocky. They have big, round, slippery granite rocks. And unfortunately, one time I slipped on one of those rocks and I fell and I hit my nose real hard. Bonk. But fortunately, it's all healed up and it's all better. See? Still there. Fortunately, there are some sandy beaches, and these are fun to find. And on those, you can go combing for treasures. Not with a comb, but with your eyes. You go beach combing, looking for treasures. And unfortunately, there's a lot of litter that washes up on the beaches. But fortunately, I've learned to take a trash bag with me and pick up any trash I find. But mostly I find treasures like shells and rocks. And unfortunately, one of the pieces of litter that's often in the ocean is glass that's broken. But fortunately, the ocean churns that glass up as it comes in on the waves and rubs against the sand. It gets worn down into a smooth, not sharp piece of glass that we call sea glass. Maybe you've found some before. Fortunately, I found a lot of sea glass, mostly brown and white. But unfortunately, blue is harder to find, and red, I've only found 2 little pieces of red. But fortunately, I'm loving my new home here in Maine. And unfortunately, I am missing Indiana. But fortunately, I found that moving to a new setting, having a new setting for your story, not only allows you to have adventures by seeing moose and porcupine and osprey, adventures eating seafood and looking for beach treasures, but it also is helping to build my own story where I am the main character. I hope that you are the main character in your good story and that fortunately you have a very fine day at your Storybook Character Day. And unfortunately, I can't be there in person. But fortunately, I will always, always be with you in story. Happy reading, everyone! I love you!